Hey, it's Felipe Yanez from socialbuddha.com, and it's my pleasure to have on the call or on the video the very successful Annijamila from powerpeople.com. She is a life coach based. Continue.
It's powerpeople.us. I haven't got the
.us. Yes. Sorry about that. So she is based off in New York, right?
I am based in New York, yes, for the moment. I'm looking forward to try and branch out a little bit to a few other bases around the world, but permanently right now residing in New York.
Nice. Well, welcome, Annie. How's everything?
Thank you, Felipe, and thank you for having me. Things are good. It's quite an interesting time right now. I left Wallstreet 2 months ago, my full-time job, and now I am full-time doing Power People. And it's one of those things that is incredibly scary. I'm outside my comfort zone. But when it feels right, I see that things are just coming in so beautifully and very effortlessly. And you calling me, it's a beautiful sign as well. And I'm very, very happy to be able to, share what I have experienced and how we can together help other people who might need to hear these words,
exactly.
on this given time.
And you do have a lot to share. We talked, a couple of days ago, and I was very honestly speaking, I was very blown away by what you had to say. Especially, you share a lot about your background and, where you came from and about your family and how you got to where you are today, which is pretty incredible. And I wanted, maybe today for you to share a little bit more about that.
Of course. I mean, I come from a family that was, first of all, very mixed. I guess all in my father's family, on my father's side, they all married people from different countries.
Really?
So it was a very mixed. My mother was from South Africa, Cape Town, and my father Danish. And unfortunately, so we were a very united, strong family. But sometimes tragedy happens, and they split when I'm 1 year old. My father had to come and visit me with my mother and my two sisters, my bigger sisters. And unfortunately, he got very sick, and we end up in an orphanage. And the system back then was not equipped for my father to just get me. It was very outdated. So he teamed up with two other fathers. They changed actually the whole system. But it took him 7 months to get me home with him. And so you can say I lost my mother when I was 1. I didn't see her until I was 19. I got separated from my siblings, my two bigger sisters, and I only were able to see them probably twice a year till I was 18 as well. And then my father, finally, he got me after 7 months, but I have done some regression therapy. I do have memory, and I knew I was all alone in the world when I was there, 1 year old, and everything was taken away. So I think that's already where it starts. You, as a little infant, you may scream or cry, but no one comes to you. And you have long distance with your sisters, who is in another department. My father could only come and go so much because of the regulations, and my mother was just gone. So I think when you have those kind of situations in an early age, it does really fuel it fuels some very, very strong emotions that can either go very wrong, or it can actually be turned out opportunities to something very, very beautiful. It definitely has, I think, given me a strength because I also survived. And finally, my father gets me. He marries again, and I get a little brother after I'm 11 years old. But unfortunately, he dies after 6 months. Then my father dies 6 months after, and my stepmom was pregnant 8 months. So she gave birth to my little sister 2 months after. So that year was just unbelievably hard and tough. And I have the best relationship with my stepmom today. I'm very proud. Also, a very inspirational, I guess, story. Because we didn't speak from 12. She was, of course, caught up with all that sorrow. I mean, that's heartbreaking to go through as a wife, as a mother. And now she had a new baby. And I was just becoming a teenager. So basically, we didn't speak from I was 12 to 18. So I kind of grew up alone. I had a family, but it was, I think what broke my heart a bit was most of my family said, you have to take care of your stepmom. And I was like, what about me? But I was at the same time also very good at showing that everything was going well with me.
Okay.
Because I didn't really show them my vulnerability. So I guess, when you have that kind of life start or life experiences, it truly humbles you. It truly makes you understand to be present more in the moments, because they're so brief. They can be taken away instantly. And I guess we have different ways of healing. And I'm reading a very interesting book right now called The 5 Ways We Grieve.
Okay.
And she talks about the nomad. She talks about the 5 different personality traits. And she talked about being a nomad. She talked about being, that you try to reproduce exactly the family life you had as when you lost it.
Right.
And then she talked about the seeker and the activist. And I realized reading this book that the last definitely 7 years, me living in 7 different countries, lived, I even stood on the street with my bags, didn't know where I belonged, and literally had a nomad life. And I was laughing when I was reading this book because I realized that was I became the runaway girl. That was one of my ways to heal. And that's one of my ways still. Now I turned it more into I always been the seeker, but now I become more the activist, which means now I'm branching out with my coaching to help other people who have, I understand the pain they have.
Yeah.
Whether you lost family members, just had a breakup, or you lost your job. I get it. It is, that there's no level to how bad or good it is. A lot of my friends kind of compared and said, oh, but my childhood was, a paradise to yours. But I still have problem finding love, or I still have problem with this, and I say, you know what? It's not a competition who had the worst childhood.
Pain is pain.
Rejection is inevitable to happen. Feeling sorrow is inevitable to happen. So, we just have different experiences, and I could maybe have been one of those people who ended up on a very bad street, very bad turn.
Yeah.
And, become an addict or dealing with very hard self-destructive ways. But instead, thank God, I found ways to channel into, a place of achievement and a place of, say I might have been wounded as a child, but, I'm going to come back stronger like the ugly duckling. So basically, it gave me a lot of empathy, I guess. It gave me a lot of empathy to understand maybe other people better.
That's good. And from last conversation we had, you talked a lot about listening, which was even a learning experience for me. And so,
Perfect.
Yeah, oh, thank you. And so you talk about empathy. How important is empathy and listening when it comes to just not, I think life in general and connecting with people?
I would say, as we also spoke last time, I really realized myself how strong that really is. I would say it's the key.
Yeah.
Philip, imagine if the whole world learned to listen. Can you imagine that? Mm-hmm. If we truly learn to listen and actually could choose, we can, but also deliberately choose every time we talk, what place do I want to listen from? What do I want to listen to? So as we talked about last time, there are like minimum 7 to 9 different ways of listening. And you can choose every time you have a communication, you can choose with someone if you want to listen for the motivation, the inspiration, out of a place out of, gratitude, acceptance, a place out of love. I find it very, very strong, and I see it when I test myself. If I want to listen to a place out of anger, just to test it. Okay, right. I can hear all the negative, I can turn it around in my head to something very negative, and it becomes all about me. But if I listen to a place of acceptance or, let's say, love, suddenly everything that comes out from the other person is, it feels so nice. I see it in a completely different light. So as we also talked about, it is a mirror. And I would say listening, I think we have a lot of problems because we stop listening, because we're actually not very well educated in what it really means to listen. Why you would hear all the, let's call them specialists, leaders, gurus, authors, who practice a lot of psychology and self-help. It's, if you go to Tibet and talk to all the monks, they train every day in doing exactly one thing: listening. Listening to the universe, the world, the planet Earth, the nature, and themselves. So I would say when you start listening from those places, really, really with an honest acceptance, you will see the world in a completely different light, and you will also hear things you didn't hear before. So I think powerfully, it's definitely one of the keys, and we can all be better, and we can all learn to give ourselves a little bit more space and room to fully be present and listen. Because as we also talked last time, a lot of the times we actually are more busy thinking about what to say while another person is speaking. And that actually makes us lose out a lot. Yeah, because you're maybe doing it right now. I'm maybe doing it right now. But that actually makes us, I have a funny story. I was doing interviews into these projects, and I was in Asia. I was interviewing this very, very, prominent person. And I had all these questions lying down I had to ask, and while he was answering, I was going on in my head what to ask next. And it wasn't until half in the interview I realized I almost, missed half of what he was saying because I was so busy about what I had to actually ask him. And my interviews only became really good when I said, okay, this is my guideline of questions to ask. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go in and I'm going to look this guy in the eye and I'm going to feel what he says. I'm going to listen to what he says. And if we're going to jump off my questions, then that's okay. Because then that was the point. Then that was what should happen. And every time I did that, it was the greatest. I really got some great stuff. If I was too controlled, too much thinking, it was a little hard. It was a little stiff. So it just shows the same goes to communicate. When you meet people and it's like stiff, it's like, I see what you're saying. It's typically because, you're not uniting on the same frequency of talking.
You're not really there.
I think personally. Sorry, say that?
I said you're not really there either. You're somewhere else.
You are somewhere else, and I think we just become masters in this world to be a lot of somewhere else when we are actually with people. I think you have a generation now that feels more lonely together with other people than ever before.
That is an amazing point right there. Yeah, and what was bizarre from the last conversation is that right before we started the interview, I was talking to a friend. He was hanging out with me, and we were talking about listening, which is really weird. That's why I really found a lot of things that I talked to you last time very kind of mind-blowing, because a lot of the things that, you attract like-minded people, you attract like-minded thoughts. So it was very interesting to hear your take on all of that. So... yeah, it's interesting.
Exactly. Sometimes we just need to hear it a third time, a 10th time. And that goes for me too. I think one thing I need this day, and then suddenly, the same goes for me. I wanted to start and branch out with my coaching, and out of the blue, boop, there you are. So it goes both ways. And that's the beauty. That's because you are when you align yourself with what you really are doing. I was sitting in Wallstreet. Yes, I was very good at actually doing the job, but I wasn't in the situation, or I didn't have the passion. I didn't have the true passion to really, you could say, what I needed to do at the last point, I wasn't willing to do. Because that was actually going to, against my integrity, my values. Did it mean that I couldn't do it? Did it mean I would kick ass doing it? No, it didn't mean that I couldn't do it. And I probably would have kicked extreme as if I did it. But I just didn't feel that it was, I feel I would lose a little bit too much of myself, and that's okay. Then you have a choice and you have a decision to make, and I made mine.
Right. How long were you in Wallstreet for?
So basically, a total of 3 years.
Okay.
So it was still a new adventure. It was something I never had an experience in. But I got offered the job at a dinner in Dubai, which sounds very random, and it actually was very random. But long story short, this great person convinced me to start in their company. And I had a situation living in the States, been here for a couple of months, and whatever I had going on in my life at that point, it made sense for me when they offered me the job in London, as I lived there. So I took a chance. I wanted more stability in my life. And I took the chance and said, you know what, I'm going to do it. I have no clue what I was doing. The first day I was sitting in front of 4 screens, all these numbers, and it was all Russian to me. But I have never felt more alive.
Really?
Because it was all learning, experience, and it was so far out of my comfort zone. And they were really, really great and very sweet, helping me, understanding, and I caught on very quick. And I always been quite quick at learning things, so that's why I thought it was funny. But I had no clue how to really do the whole client thing, but I'm very good at, connections and relations.
Yeah.
And from my previous job where I had to hunt down, top ministers, CEOs, really high profile people, I thought, hang on a second, I can use that strategy in this job. So I did really, and I think I told you last time, what I did end up doing was I did stand in JP Morgan in a chicken suit, 5:30 p.m. when thousands of people were leaving their office, making an absolutely ass of myself.
I love it.
To actually prove a point to the trader that I wanted to win over. And we have had a bet. I hadn't met him yet, and the whole game for me was I had to meet this guy. He was one of the biggest traders in London. And basically, I lost the bet. He said, for fun, I'll see you later in a chicken suit in my trading floor. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna show this guy. I'm not bullshitting. So I said to my boss, it's okay, I'm going to leave a little early. I'm going to go rent the chicken suits and show. He never came down to see me. And I was a little bit disappointed, but his colleague came down, took a photo. I sent him a photo. And next day he was like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. You're from now on my favorite Muppet. And we started trading a lot. So that was probably 3 weeks, maybe 1.5 months into my job. And that's how it actually all snowballed from there, that I had a very, how you say, I didn't have much pride in how to get my clients, meaning I would stand up in a chicken suit if that was what it take. Or, I would use, if they gave me bullshit, I would bullshit them back. Right. And they like that. So I think also they knew I was actually a nice person, so that helped a lot, of course. There are a lot of not so nice people in this business, so I had a lot of fun with it. And it has been an absolute fun adventure. I love that I can watch CNN, CNBC, and I understand completely the stock market now. And I can analyze it, and I can even invest. So it was my little education, because I had zero background in finance, literally zero. So I'm happy to allow myself to throw myself into adventures, and I think, everyone should give themselves the chance. Go for it.
It's very exciting, and I think most people would think, I better prepare like for a whole year before I try it or anything like that. And it's really amazing what learning on the job, really how it feels and how it is, because you don't have to start at the bottom. You can just start where you want to start and learn on the job, even if you have no clue. And I love that story. It's very, very true though.
I have to say, it depends what kind of person you are. There are, in terms of the Enneagram, illustrate 9 different types. Mm-hmm. So of course, it all depends what type are you. But I have to say, I think theory is great in many ways. But practice, that's where the whole gold is. And you can take anyone who has enough persistency, enough determination, they will succeed. Because that is what actually is needed. You need to be persistent. Doesn't matter if you have theory behind you or if you don't. Both people, whether you have it or not, if you're not persistent more than all the others, you're not going to succeed more than the others, with or without your theory. So I think some people who don't have a big education behind them, don't have all that theory behind them, what they can do instead is they can be more persistent. I am persistent. I want to learn this. I'm going to talk to the expert. I'm going to go and find my information. I'm going to do my research. And most importantly, stop listening to people telling you you can't do it because you don't follow the rules completely. That is probably the biggest, I would say, challenge. Because let's be honest, I'm not saying you can become a doctor if you don't have a degree as a doctor. There are certain things that you really have to study.
Right.
But there are even things where you can do it and study it on the job. Exactly. I mean, Wallstreet, interestingly enough, a lot of my colleagues, of course, a lot of them had a very big background in finance, but there were still people there as well who had, they came from all different kinds of walks of life, and they kind of ended up there a little bit by accident. And the ones that were doing the best, that was the ones who said, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to succeed. Whatever it takes. And in some instances, some of them go too far. And they will have their penalties or whatever. But in other cases, you can clearly see, I saw some of the people who had education behind them way too lazy, way too self-absorbed, and it wasn't working properly. Then I saw people, no education, no background in finance, they would kill it. Because they knew they had to be better. They knew that they didn't have that same equal, place of coming from. And that is very inspiring. You can a lot more than we think. And if you find a place where they allow you to actually, come in the United States, they use a lot of interns. I have a lot of stories and friends. They start as an intern for 3 months, and then, they became, a vice president, or they became a director, or they didn't have to do all the steps because they showed in those 3 months, also they might be older, but it definitely is possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it really is, I think what you're talking about also is courage. And I feel like when you have that fear and you have something that really scares you, something new, when you take those steps and really become courageous, you have just found your passion. I think courageousness and your passion is very related, because for a lot of people, they feel like their life is very dull, but it's only because they've been kind of holding back because of their fears, and so they never really find their passion. Yeah,
absolutely. I agree with you, and that's just, I would say everything is really truly in balance, but it is a little bit sad to observe. And you're right. It's like a lot of people talking about the sleeping sheeps. They walk through lives, they just do whatever they think is right, and they might not really ask themselves properly and say, what is really my passion? I agree with you. It takes courage to follow your passion. And passion doesn't always equal great business. But if you have the right, feelings behind, determination behind, because no matter what you do, whenever you start a business or you want to do something, find your passion, you will hit what is also called the dip. If you want to start learning about self-development, you want to learn how to change your life, you will have so much success fast and easy. It's almost like the beginner's luck. And after that, you hit the dip where you're really tested. Is this really what you want? Are you also willing to do what it takes to get the success result? I think a lot of people have a feeling about what they would like, what they like to do. They can imagine, they live it out through TV, through other people. And when they might start to tip their toes out of the comfort zone, trying to see if maybe they could play a little bit with it, immediately they get fronted with maybe a little bit of good luck and then the dip. And that's where they would typically confirm to themselves, what was I even thinking? I can't do this. Of course I can't. Oh my God, how stupid was I? And this is all thoughts going on subconsciously. They're not going on in a conscious, we're not sitting saying them out loud. And that's actually even worse, because when they go on subconscious, they make a lot more impact on your true beliefs. So it does take courage. And you can say, what do you do? How do you become more, courageous? I think that's a very interesting, aspect to study. Because what is it that makes people courageous, and what is it that makes people, stagnated, frozen in a plain typical life or life cycle? And I think I have a need for adventure. I like a lot of uncertainty, but I have probably taken in too much uncertainty. Definitely I have. So I actually had to learn to become more stable. I had to learn to become more normal. And I would constantly compare myself, constantly moving around, doing all these great things. But I felt, oh my God, how and when will I learn to become normal? I felt that I wasn't really good enough because I was not settling down like everybody else. And they were all looking at me thinking, oh, how does she do it? So again, our self-perception of where we are, what we do, is even more important. It's like being a fat girl. You lose a lot of weight, but you still feel fat. I had that feeling after leaving Denmark. I did all these great things, but a part of me was still thinking those same things that I did back home and that I actually wanted to remove myself from, until I really saw the pattern. And I think in terms of reflecting on your courage situation, what is it that we're really afraid of? We're afraid of failing. We're afraid of losing love and being rejected to a point where life is not worth living. That is what we truly are afraid of when we narrow it all down. So courage has to also mean I am willing to risk. I'm willing to risk. And you know what? Most of the time we think we're risking our life when we're absolutely not. That's how it's perceived in our mind.
That's how it feels.
So that makes other people like me look like, wow, she's so courageous. I did risk, and I did do things that I would say, sometimes looking back, thinking, how the hell did I pull that off? But I just started on a path, and I was so determined that whatever is going to happen to this path, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it down there. And I did. And I did have to take a lot of courage. I did have to, lower my expectation. I had to really become vulnerable, standing with your bags on your street, having no place to sleep, $20 in your pocket. It is very intimidating. But my God, the lesson I learned from also having that experience, I learned that I can do anything. I'm not encouraging anyone to become homeless. I'm not encouraging anyone to be flat broke. But if it does happen because you jeopardized or took a risk, I can promise you that experience will reward you if you choose to let it be the best thing that could happen to you. Today, I am in a much better place because I actually lived through that situation and I said, what if this is the best thing that can happen to me? So that is a beautiful thing. That's a very, very, very good thing. So courage is just also allowing yourself to keep going, risk, take a risk. Yeah. And I don't think that's something necessarily can be taught. I don't think it's something that, I think it's something, it's a very interesting phenomena that could be funny to study and research a bit more on, but definitely what will help is that you surround yourself with people who makes you feel that you're a little bit safe if you did fail, you know? And most of the time we're afraid of something that's never going to happen anyway.
That's very true.
Just 80% is worrying of something that is quite an illusion. So yeah, you're right. Courage is a very important step, but it's something that we can inspire. I think we all have it. We just need to feel inspired enough to do it.
Do you think, you were talking about how we are afraid of rejection and how what would it mean about us if we failed and all this? Do you think building a stronger self-image or a very positive self-image actually encourages courage?
I think so, yeah, absolutely. I remember I had an old friend back home. I was so impressed with the way he was just, he was not accepting a no for an answer. He was one of these, he had his own company, and he was kind of just starting up. It was going quite well. He had a partner. And I remember I was so stunned and so profound about, oh yeah, if that's not going to work, so what? I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to do that. And I thought, hang on a second. How come you're not afraid of being rejected? And he was like, yeah, but then I'll just ask another one or another one. And what I realized was, I think a lot of people, when we go to work, we actually identify ourselves with those results.
Yeah.
So if you have a bad situation happening at work, you make it all about your personal being, that you're not good enough as a person. But that's not necessarily true. Who you are as a person and what you do at your work, of course they can be one and the same, but most of the time has nothing to do with each other. So I realized, if I get rejected asking for something, let's say it had to do with work, then they're not rejecting me as a person, they're rejecting what I'm offering. It can be a product, it can be a solution, a package, whatever it is. And it wasn't until I separated those two things that I realized, okay, this is actually a big, big key to how you can actually play more with courage. Allow yourself to be rejected and actually just shake your shoulders and say, oh, so what? We have all these great stories about people being rejected over and over and over. Starbucks, I don't know if it was over 1,000 or even more rejection he had to go through. Kentucky Fried Chicken, I think it was 1,200 rejections.
That's a big one.
The list goes on. I'm sorry if I'm not, citing the numbers correctly, but there are so many great stories about people just saying, I want to do this, and I'm going to keep going until I get it. And I learned one very, very important lesson when I played tennis as a kid. So I was playing on a top level, competitions all the time, and I had to learn to play my backhand with one hand. And I was a little bit of a tomboy, so I wanted to play like the boys, and, then I was really cool. So my trainer, he constantly trained my backhand day in and day out. I was going nuts. I was thinking, is this ever going to end? It became pain. It became literally pain. I came up with excuses for why I shouldn't, attend today and I think in a couple of weeks down the road, we kept hitting it, and he just said, you have to go on, you have to go on, you have to go on. And I was very impatient as well as a kid, so it was very, very tough to do the same over and over and over and over. I think maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks after we started this process, I hit my backhand in a way that only, it's almost like golf when you hit it so perfectly. My whole body memory tuned in and vibrated, locking that experience in, saying, this is it. The feeling was like, it was almost spiritual. So what he taught me was, if you keep going, even when it gets tough, you will make it. Keep going. So after that, I just kept training, becoming good at that backhand. And then it became even more fun because now I could start controlling it. And that scenario really taught me about life. Whenever I had situations in my life and it was very, very tough and it got to a point where I wanted to quit, I always remembered, Annie, remember what you did with tennis. Keep going. And now throughout the last at least 15, 20 years of my life, I have kept proving to myself every time I get into these deep, deep, deep waters, I know that if I keep swimming, there is going to be shore on the other side. And every time I feel stronger, I feel more able to be more courageous the next time. So I agree what you say. The rejections, I also, as we talked the last time, we had this great exercise in coaching where you have to go out on the street, get 5 rejections.
Oh, really?
And it can't be silly rejections like it's raining and you ask for an umbrella. I mean, that actually is a good rejection because who want to give you your umbrella if it's raining? But you'll be surprised. So the whole task and the whole task of that exercise that my coach and mentor taught us was, you will be surprised how hard it is to get 5 rejections. If you use the exercise to really pursue something you really are interested in, really want to do or achieve, you will be surprised. It's not that easy to get those 5 rejections. Again, I saw that all that fear in my mind, what it would mean about me being rejected, not having the courage to put myself out there saying, this is me. I realized it's actually not that easy to get rejected. So most of us, we walk around life being so afraid of something that may not even be very likable to happen because of insecurities. And I think, we also talked about the whole scenario. You have the Mount Everest. You want to climb to the top. That's right. Your goal. You're standing in the front of the mountain. So looking up, and if you beam yourself up in 1 second, of course that's very scary because you haven't done the trip. You haven't done the path up. But once you start taking the first step, the next step, the next step, and the next step, you'll find out, wow, I can actually do this. You break it into pieces. You break it into steps. And then those rejections that comes on your way, they will show you that it's actually not that dangerous as you perceived in your mind. So I think courage also equals, I would say, an illusion of what is actually of the fear. The fear that we actually are feeling and we are thinking might happen, it's not going to happen. In some cases, of course, it can happen. But most of the time, it's very, very rare that it happens. And I can tell I had the situation happening, what I would say some of the worst thing could happen. And that was, standing on the street. I didn't know I woke up in the morning. I didn't know where to sleep at night. And I didn't know where to get money for food. So I would say when the worst thing really happens, you find your way. We are so much stronger than we really think. And I only wish, and I can only hope through my work, through people like you guys, that we can unite more and collaborate more to actually help people be more courageous. And once we start playing with it, you will see very quickly it's quite funny. Yeah. And I think your self-esteem is important to, take a risk. Even if you fail, you're going to feel stronger. So you're better off. You will have more confidence. But again, if you fail and you make that a result that you are not good enough and you can't do anything, of course, then you're stuck. And that's where action is so important. Action sometimes is the best fuel for us to really just get out of our comfort zone and get to where we want to be. Staying stuck expecting things, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and I think...
Sorry, what did you say?
Yeah, I think last time you shared something about your daily habits, which was along those lines, which was... you always change whatever happens to the best or the most positive meaning. And I think that, if I remember correctly, that was one of the habits that you had, that you constantly are, no matter what the situation is, no matter what is going on, you always try to find the best meaning in it. And I think that goes along the lines of what you're talking about.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's something collectively we all can be better at. That's definitely one of my big passions and missions, is to both educate and help a bit, but also make it more of a, state of mind. Because we are constantly, approached and beamed with negative information, advertising. I can't even remember how many millions beeps of negative vibration that hits us every day. Mm-hmm. We have constantly in the media all these reasons why we shouldn't be good enough. And definitely, I realized at one point that if you actually trick your mind into believing new things that you never thought you could do, you're also going to have those great results. And I believe that it has to do with responsibility. And that's a tough one for a lot of people. It was a tough one for me at one point. But once we start to be fully responsible for our own lives, for everything that really truly happens in our life and that we create, then you can start actually saying, okay, I have created this because I need a lesson in this, or I'm repeating a pattern.
Exactly.
What does this really mean to me? And what if, start studying successful people. What you will find out very quickly, all these successful people, they had a little defeat or a big defeat just before the success.
Yeah.
Difference is they kept going. They didn't give up. And when we become self-responsible, we can allow ourselves to say, okay, what is actually the true meaning of what's going on with me? What do I really want? But you're right. I realize that you can have the same situation happening for two different people, and the perception of the situation is completely different. For type A or the person A, it's the worst thing that could happen to him. For type B or the person B, it's the best thing that could happen to him.
Yeah.
And we'll see with successful people, one thing they all have in common is that they take what we perceive in a society, the way we typically believe things. They take a situation everybody would perceive as being negative and say, hang on a second, how can I turn this around? What is it in this situation I can use to my advantage? And I experiment with that all the time. I see so many times I've turned something really bad into something really good. And yes, it's not necessarily a walk in the park, but I do see that if I choose to stay very negative, believing, oh, I'm a failure, you see this is not going to happen, and I keep repeating that, I also know what life I'm going to have.
Yeah.
I like to solve the puzzle, and this is again something to encourage, people out there and say, you know what? However bad it is, you're not alone, and there are people who most likely have been through this before you who can, show out of their experience how to actually get through this. There are specialists in almost every field of experiences you can have that you can consult with. There are books to read. There's so much we can do instead of sitting down and complaining and whining because we want to victimize ourselves. Once you start to become fully responsible, it becomes harder to be a victim. Mm-hmm. And victim is a natural process we all have to go through. It's a natural process and a very, little bit limited way of actually gaining attention and love. Yeah. It starts when we're a kid. We hit ourselves, oh, mommy, it hurts, I hit myself. And the parents go, oh, poor you. Or in the school, if somebody were hurt, we would comfort them. There's a lot of noise. I'm not sure what that noise is. Is that you?
It's my helicopter. It's dropping by on top of the house. Yeah, it's a helicopter.
You got a patch too. That's very cool.
Yeah, of course.
So basically, the whole state of being victimizing ourselves, and I for sure played that card. a lot of times.
Yeah.
And I really had to, it's a tough one for me. I really had to accept, you know what, the past is the past. This is your life now. You really have the ability to choose. So I made one commitment to myself, and when I talk to people I typically coach, I also ask them, are you willing to commit to yourself fully? Do whatever it takes to make yourself happy. Because in this process of making yourself happy and really reach your goal the way you want to, you will come through some obstacles. You will have to dig in your past, and you will have to change patterns that feel so comfortable for you that you almost want to resist everything to change it. And I really saw once you stop victimizing yourself, that's when miracles starts to happen. And I had to be creative. I had to find new ways of getting attention and love, and that was even better. Because getting sick all the time, losing jobs, moving around, you know what? I might have to prove a point to myself and learn a lesson, but doing it over and over and over, what was that really giving me? Except the feeling of what's going to happen to me. So I had to shape up and say, everything that happens in my life is my creation. I'm responsible. And from that day on, committing completely to do whatever it takes. And that meant I had to let go of things. I had to let go of people. And that can be tough as well. But today I know it was the right choice.
Right.
Because my life had been more and more, each day afterwards.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think for me in the past, the whole victimizing thing, for me, it came from a need to control others.
Yeah.
Because many times, you act a certain way or do a certain thing and pretend yourself to be a victim, and of course people are going to come and try to help you out, and there you feel like you have more control over people, which is a big need that many people don't realize they have in their head. But again, it's definitely doesn't enrich your life in any way. And yeah.
It is one of the, I think when we look, I would love to implement in so many school systems, especially for kids, learning a lot more about psychology, basic anatomy, basic spirituality, law of attraction, call it whatever you want. But I think definitely the need to control, that is the ego running. And the more involved we become, and the more we get in life, the more we actually are able to let go of the ego. But the ego is a funny, how you say, component as well, because when you become more selfless, when you actually evolve and you start to reach out, let's be honest, doing a lot of charity, we're also doing that because a part of us feels really good about it, and we perceive I'm a good person. So, that can actually be egoistic, even though you're helping a lot of people. But when you have to give up the ego in terms of controlling, the ego will really, it's almost like its own entity. It will really resist, and it will test you a lot. And that, I think, a lot of people, they are, when that process happens, they tend to just, obey the ego and say, all right, I'm just gonna keep controlling because that is more easy and it's more safe. But you will then have people that I also talk to, and they have one disastrous relationship after the other. And they are complaining because they don't get the love, they don't get the attention, they don't get the beautiful relationship that they really want. And when you start looking into how much the need is to control, when that's greater because of fear of actually getting hurt, fear of being controlled, well, you are only allowing you so much of result, a positive result, if you stay in that space, if you stay in that mindset. That's why when you are going into relationship and dating, it is so important to, the more you can consciously try not to control, the better. It is inevitably something that happens between two people. But the real fear for most people is to let go and allow themselves vulnerability. Absolutely. I mean, there are enough. I had to learn to be vulnerable. It was probably based on my past. It was, I didn't show fear because, I kind of grew up on my own in many ways, but I had to learn to be vulnerable, be a woman and not a boy. I am a woman. I see the more that I explored those side of myself and the more that I actually allowed to show all of me to the other person, that's when I had a full content relationship. If I hold certain things back, of my own vulnerability or about myself and not give all of me, I wouldn't get all of the other person either. What you send out, you get back. So I think that's a very important part as well.
How would you, let's say a person is really trying to perhaps attract the right person, whether it be attracting the right man or the right woman, whatever that might be for them. In your personal experience, how would someone go about that?
So I played a lot with that whole aspect for many, 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 many years. I have had probably 6 long-distance relationships, so I had to kind of look at my life and myself and say, what am I doing? Why am I constantly choosing something that is actually on a distance? And that was because subconsciously it was safe. I would jump into life, have fun, meet whatever, and I would say, oh, I can do this because deep inside this is safe. And then you might actually fall in love. What are you going to do then? Then you're a little bit in a bad situation because all the fears and you can't control anything. Not that you have to control, but everything is kind of out of your control in many ways when you have oceans apart. And basically, what I will recommend everybody and what I have done over and over, and you have to observe the contrast. Start looking at what is it that you don't like. What is it that you have experienced in your life or you have right now in a partner that you do not like? Take a piece of paper and make a line in the middle. The left column, you write what I do not like, do not want. You state everything down, what you can remember from past relationships. And let's say one of them is I don't want a guy who's cheating, because you might have had a past, boyfriend or girlfriend who cheated.
Right.
Okay, so what do you want instead? I want a loyal, boyfriend and girlfriend. What I started to do was I started writing down literally, line for line, how I wanted my relationship to be, how I wanted to feel, and what kind of person I wanted to be with. And then I also knew, I think if you ask most people, they can write easily a page that is not very in depth of what a person, that if we ask 10 people to write down a page, that would be more or less the same person. So here comes the next trick, and that is, you gotta get so specific that we almost are talking what eye color. Of course, you don't have to choose eye color, hair color, because it all comes in terms of personality. That's the most important thing.
True.
But what kind of integrity does she or he has? Is it a person who likes to do the same thing as you? Is it the person that makes you feel, more motivated to do things in life? Do you do things together? And I could write up to 8 to 12 pages, these big pages, filling out how exactly I wanted. And you know what? Every time I did it, I would meet that person.
Yeah.
But then the person I met have some qualities I really didn't like that I didn't think of. So I knew, hang on, get my paper, add it to the list. So I also decided, and I'm not sure exactly when I decided, but that's probably maybe 10 years ago. I knew that every time I had a breakup, I would upgrade, and I knew next time it's going to be better, because I had my list and I would add more stuff to it, or I would eliminate stuff out.
Something you didn't
so
like.
I understood. yeah, so I understood it was also me who had to change. If you're asking for Mr. Perfect, you gotta be perfect. Perfect is a wrong word, but you gotta be the same qualities as what you're asking for. Otherwise, your vibrations won't match up. So I knew when I had the different, ex-boyfriends, I could see, oh, I need to work on this here. I need to work on this level here. And I definitely came to a point where I had to also ask myself, because I wasn't happy with all these long distance relationships. It didn't give me that true compassion and intimacy that I really needed and the safetiness that I wanted to feel. So I also had to say, I think it's time for me to actually find someone in the same country, same city. And I knew there was a reason why I haven't done that. I knew why I was repeating a pattern. I had some commitment phobia that again was panning back to my past. I had to believe that either they're gonna leave me or they're gonna die. So I had to work on that belief behind and really be honest with myself and say, if I keep doing what I'm doing, I for sure am not gonna, have that happy, successful relationship that I really have been wanting my whole life. So what will it take for me to actually take that risk? And as I told you the other day, I read the book Getting to Commitment. I read Radical Forgiveness. Those two books I recommend to everybody I talk to, everybody I coach, because they, for me, they are two very great transformational books. And I guess Radical Forgiveness really taught me I had to actually forgive myself in many ways of things I've done in the past and, past mistakes in past relationships.
Right.
And the other one, Getting to Commitment, was also illustrating, I laughed a lot through the book though, because it was illustrating how I chose constantly, to not give all of myself and keep it on a distance because that's safe. So I said, you know what, I need to clear those patterns. And I started working a lot with myself. I started writing down a lot. And I also knew I am not going to get what I really want until I'm really happy with myself. So I started creating a list saying what really makes me happy on my own. And I made a list of things that I love to do that I could do in my control. And the good thing about, for me, living in New York, when you're a very active person, you have easy access to do a lot of fun stuff.
Right.
So I started doing these things that I love to do. I started playing more tennis. I was running a lot. I would go experimenting with creative workshops, and I would do certain things with my friends. So I chose to consciously infuse 80%, if not trying 100% of things in my life that was under my control, where I wasn't depending on other people. So I also found out what is fun for me to do alone. If I meet other people doing it, or if people want to join me doing it, great. But I'm not depending on other people to do it. And that was the key for me. I came to a place where I was, to be honest, I was so in love with myself. I was so in love with life. I didn't even think about having, a life partner because I didn't need it. I was really content. I was really, truly happy. Boom. 2 weeks after I wrote the last list, there he was. The love of my life. And of course, now I'm looking back saying, wow, I really, really see my whole journey over 10, 15 years, how I had to evolve. I had to upgrade myself. I had to become better in many areas before I could meet the true, perfectionist or the perfection of what the ideal person.
The ideal person,
So there's a lot we can do. But as we also talked about, Philippe, if we just sit down and say, I want the perfect guy tomorrow and I'm not going to do anything about it myself, it's not probably going to happen.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do attract people where they say, oh, I always attract the wrong guys. Well, if you do that, or the wrong girls for that matter, if you do that, first of all, the illusion that when you're single, no matter where we are in our lives, we typically have that illusion, or I would say, we'll call it, not an illusion, but I would call it, it's like the belief that, okay, I have to find the right person, get married, get kids, and have a family, and, do what everybody else are doing.
Right.
And if not with the right life partner, something is wrong with me. But here's the deal, whatever we come from, whatever walk of life that we grew up with, and we have to evolve certain aspect of ourselves. So the people you may be attracting right now, they are mirroring in many ways. Even the ones that are horribly bad for us.
Yeah.
Even doing abuse. That is a mirror. It's not necessarily that the other person is abusive, but it definitely has to do with the fact that maybe that's your outlet of getting that love and attention you're not able to give yourself. And by being abused or being in an abusive relationship, you are confirming one thing: I'm not good enough, because that's typically what we all deal with. You're confirming as well, I have people who loves me, because when the shit hits the fan and it really goes bad, you call certain people and they want to rescue you.
You get to be right about your story.
Say that again? You
get to be right about the story you're telling yourself. You get to be right about it. You get to be right about all of these things that you consider the truth. And that brought so many thoughts to my head as you're talking, because you do. It's two things I think you were talking about. First of all, you have to figure out, I think this is what you're saying, you have to figure out what you're getting out of this negative situation. What are you getting? And of course you have to give it up. And I think that's one of the things, I think that's probably one of the hardest things, to really figure out that you are actually benefiting from attracting negative life partners, friends, or whatever it might be.
Typically what also happens is when we say, I want change, what life will do is it will send you exactly what you just had. It is our own way of testing ourselves. Well, you say you want change, you can have the same shit, now change. Meaning, if you had a bad boyfriend and you want to change and you want to have a better one, they will typically send you the same shit, because now you need to prove to yourself that you can tell the difference. And you can say, thank you, but no thank you. So that is actually what often happens. That's why people are complaining about the secret law of attraction. Oh, I wanted a great guy and now I still have shit. Well, you know what? The way we create new result in our minds subconsciously to understand that we are changing is to create new evidence. So think about it for a moment. If you had a bad relationship or a bad girlfriend, boyfriend, and now you say, I want change, I'm ready. You meet exactly the same type again. If you resist that, recognizing this is not for me, if you look at it from the outside, you just created a beautiful experience where you prove to yourself that you listen to yourself, you trust your judgment, and that you can tell the difference. That means subconsciously, you know now, I am ready for the next step. So what I really get sometimes a little bit sad to see is a lot of women especially, they meet all these guys, they might be divorced, they might have a breakup, and they go out and they date a new guy, and it doesn't work out. And they would be horrified, unhappy. I try to illustrate a little bit sometimes for some of them, saying, look at it from this point of view. If you have a staircase of 10 steps, and step number 10, that's your ideal person, I would ask them and say, what step are you really on? Was this relationship on step 10 Or was this relationship maybe in fact on step 5 or 2? So if you use that metaphor, when they're done on step 5, horrible breakup, I say to her or him, why are you actually sad about this? You want to go to 10. You just finished something quicker than you've done in your past, and now you're ready for step 6, 7, 8, 9. So now you're a step closer. It's a whole different way of thinking, and that's what I implement with me. When I had a breakup, of course, I'm not saying I wasn't sad or anything, but I also knew I could get what I wanted. I knew I would have the ability to be with what was truly right, and I also knew every time I'm one step closer. So I celebrated a lot being able to let go. And that actually created a whole new different way of, you can say, which probably allowed me to attract consistently better and better and better.
Yep.
Where a lot of people just stay stuck. So that is a thing to remember and think of. Where are you honestly? If you want 10, you have to accept yourself being a 5. And you have to accept that you need a couple of people to evolve on, so you can become that 10, because all relationship has beautiful lessons we need to learn. I am grateful for every relationship I've had. I've been lucky to have so good guys in my life, but they all taught me the valuable things I needed to learn so I can give it to the right person that I'm with now. And if it wasn't for them, I might not even be with the perfect person in my life.
Exactly.
So I think that's very, very important. And we have a lot more we can do on our own. It's not just by chance. I think most people, they actually act upon dating like this, completely blindfolded, walking around, stumbling into things. Most people don't know what they really want. They know what they don't want, and they get it over and over and over and over and over.
So true.
So I think that's something to work on.
Yeah. And speaking of relationships, I know last time you mentioned something. How would you work on your relationship with money? So that that's a good one. I think that's a very interesting one. I remember reading once that it was an old book. And it was about when women meet successful men. Okay. And how important it actually was for that woman to have the mindset of success when she was with the man. And I think when you are in a relationship, people go their different ways in terms of ambitions and even how you say work and even friends. Really depending what kind of relationship you have, you can decide to do something together. Some people are really good at that and they create great successes. Other people are really bad at that and should probably not do anything together in terms of a business, in terms of that. Sure.
I come from a country where we are more or less equals, men and women. So you can say I'm brought up in a society where, the woman has her money and the guy has his money. Where I see a big difference in the States, of course, a lot of women also have their money and the men have their money, but in the States you also have a lot more women who are taken care of by the man. Mm-hmm. So to understand your question correctly, are you asking in terms of how to get more money in your relationship together, or are you just talking about the issue regarding money in a relationship?
Actually, I was doing a little bit of play on words. I was asking mostly as far as how would you fix your relationship with money? Like, I think last time we spoke about how many times. Yeah, I like that perspective though. That was something I've never thought about before. But as far as like.
A funny one. You say, how would I fix my relationship with money?
Yes. So I remember last time.
Can I answer that completely, completely as those words you just said?
Sure.
Okay. You can, well, okay. So first of all, I get a little bit eager here because the real truth is you do not fix a relationship with money. That's the real truth. A sustainable relationship is not fixed by money. You can fix it by doing things that cost money, sure. But when you say, how would you fix a relationship with money? It sounds to me like there's something wrong with the relationship. And
I don't think I phrased it correctly. Let me go into, last time we spoke about how, I'm switching subjects. So last time we spoke about how many times when people are going into, they want to have more money in their lives, they don't realize that they actually feel bad about having more money. So when I meant relationship, I meant the feelings that they have regarding money.
Also the relationship with money.
Yes.
Got it. Sorry. There you go. There we go. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that.
All right. Absolutely. That's because we've been talking about dating. So for me, relationship was...
So I was like...
No. So the relationship, I'm doing my own experiment these days, which is quite interesting. As we talked about the other day, again, you might do the law of attraction. You might say, I want to have $1 million, or I want to be rich. Most people, declare and say that they want it in their lives. And what we did talk about is the interesting factor. You can wish upon whatever you want, but if you believe behind getting that, so let's say you want $1 million.
Right.
If you believe or your feelings attached to actually have $1 million is negative, or your feelings about money in general is negative, you might attract the opportunity in how to get $1 million. You might attract actually $1 million. But in 9 out of 10 times, if not 10 out of 10 times, you will push it away as quick as it came into your life. So the interesting part is, if you upgrade yourself, you're also changing identity. This is one of my big key stones and my big missions that I really, really want to expose to people and really want to talk more about and illustrate what it really means when we change identity. Because going from earning, let's say, $40,000 or $60,000 a year to suddenly earning $500,000 a year or even $1 million a year, that's a big gap. That's a huge gap. And not only would it be easy to imagine what you can do with all that money, we can all dream. That's not the hard part. No, the hard part is, how does it actually feel for you? Who are you going to be if you are, let's say, a millionaire? Are people suddenly now expecting you to take care of them? Is your whole family going to come running and against you? So what I noticed a lot with money is, first of all, a lot of people have a negative attachment to money in general, just the feeling. That is something we globally need to change. The second thing is that we, of course, have all these negative beliefs, limited beliefs, it doesn't hang on trees, it's not easy to get, you have to work hard. All these things, I think most people more and more are realizing that's not really true. You have millionaires happening overnight now. You have millionaires that takes them 6 months to create a great idea, business, boom. It happens more and more frequently. Within a year, people are booming out in business or an idea. There's so many different ways we can earn money on now that people like me and my generation, I almost feel like, God damn, that old school way I grew up, it's not really working anymore. So I have to change my mindset in that matter as well. I mean, now you have titles and jobs that didn't exist 5 years ago.
Right.
In terms of the whole online, spectrum. But the point with the money is, who are you really when you have more money? Because more money also means more responsibility. That is inevitable. That's why a lot of people, when they get more money, they actually just use them very fast, very quickly, because they don't like the responsibility or, the perceived feelings that comes with it. So the relationship with money has to do as well with, how do you actually feel about yourself? If you want to attract more money and you deep inside don't feel you deserve more money because you still have to prove to yourself you're not good enough.
Yeah.
Guess what? That money is going to come but go away fast again. So I think globally it is definitely a time now to not only just trying to attract more, because we can literally all get all the money we want. There is enough for everybody. It is beliefs that are so deep-seated, so based in subconscious, that it can take even hypnotherapy many sessions before we clear those beliefs. And creating a new identity, whether you want to change relationships, you want to change your success in terms of money, that's a scary thing. If you have friends and you step out of your comfort zone and suddenly you are able to do a lot of fun stuff, but your friends can't keep up, that can be an uncomfortable place to be too. So typically, instead of aiming for the big top of the mountain, just start with smaller steps. Something that is a little bit more realistic, where you actually can be more in control of it. And again, if you are in a situation where you're not earning enough, you're not making ends meet, you're not making enough to pay the bills, or you're just paying the bills, you're just making what you need, then there is a reason for that too.
Right.
And I'm right now literally reading the classic one of Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to test out, because I've seen in my life how I attracted a lot of money, and I also seen how I pushed it away. So I'm trying right now to do a fun experiment to really look at, again, the complete psychological process that happens at the same way when you want to lose weight, when you want to get the right partner in your life, or you want to get the right job. It is the same, I would say, beliefs, it's the same process that happens.
Yeah.
That we need to work on. But it all starts with you. It really all starts with you. And we can have unlimited amount. I think most of the time people don't know how to get it. If you cannot see how to get it, let's say you have a job that pays you a certain amount of money each month. If you already know there's no higher position, or you can't get a promotion, or there's no other job within that organization or company, it's going to be really hard to see or feel how to get more money. For a lot of people, they feel that's the top, that's the ceiling.
Right.
But here's a beautiful thing. There are 1 million, if not 100 million ways you can get more money outside whatever job you have. Today, when you can do blogging, you can create so many revenue streams from all kinds of different sources. And I guess a lot of young people, they're already starting doing it now when they're teenagers. They even have it as a school project. So I think we don't have to worry so much about them right now. But people like me who didn't grow up with the internet like that, we have to actually really change that old dated mindset. And I love these communities coming together where we can support each other, and where social Buddha like you guys, you pinpoint on it so people actually can gain something from it.
Yeah.
But most importantly, it is a relationship that you have. Treat the money the same way as if it was your girlfriend. So if you expect to have a beautiful relationship, then start having a beautiful relationship with your money.
Very powerful.
And of course, gratitude is always the key. Gratitude is, I think, fueling everything, because that is just a conscious way of changing your vibration.
Right.
So as much as we can be gratitude or grateful, that just means that you will vibrate on a frequency where the things that you typically want that are better, they are on that frequency. So you can say, the more you actually consciously say thank you in your mind, thank you for giving me this great, project today, or thank you for letting me meet that person on the subway, or, whatever it is.
Right.
But start focusing on the small things, because it is those small things that typically has the biggest secrets, the biggest gift. And we walk so quickly past all these small gems and gifts that are just waiting for you to pluck them and use them. And that's why everybody talks about, all the authors and gurus or whatever you want to call them. They also talk about, stop in life and just smell the air, breathe and just be.
Yeah.
That's often our true answers comes to.
Very true. So I wanted to like to do this in interviews, just to finish up the interview today. I found a quote that you posted on your page, and I really liked it, and I think it goes on with a lot of the things we talked about today. And it's by Jordan Belfort, and it says, "The only thing standing between you and your goal is the bullshit story you keep telling yourself as to why you can't achieve it." So what does that mean to you personally?
So I really love that quote, and that resonates so much with how I feel. That means to me that if we can clear all that bullshit that we do tell ourselves, when we clear that is when we actually achieve our goal. So every time I am not achieving what I want, or it takes longer, because typically I find a way to always get it, but when it takes longer, it becomes more tedious, I actually immediately think, what bullshit story am I telling myself right now? Because it is bullshit. It's not true that you're not good enough. That is not true. It will never be true. That is something you have adopted. It's something that you have believed or chosen to believe from probably a very early age. Family, friends, parents, school, it may be even work. And then you found a way to make that your real truth, because that was your outlet to get attention and love. Everything we do has to do with love. And some people say, nah, that's not true. Yes, it is literally about love. But it can be on a subconscious level. So I do love that he says in a very tough manner, because it is bullshit. It is the fact that we can't blame ourselves either, because we really are doing the best we can with what knowledge we have. When we know better, we can do better. So we also have to accept where we are. We have to accept that, you know what, I may not feel I'm good enough. I may have had all the evidence in my life previously to show me that I was right in that belief. But the real truth is, we were all born good enough. We all are good enough. It's just we have a society with leaders, top people, who needed for so many years to suppress the masses. And I don't want to go into big policy stuff and, like that, but it is inevitable that you do have an evolution where you have either kings and queens, and you will have a bureaucracy or hierarchy. And when you were down in the masses, the job from the top was to let you know that you're nothing, let you know that you're useless, because that was a way to be controlled.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit inevitably not to feel not good enough in some kind of aspect. When you look at the media, I mean, being just my size today, which is 36, sometimes 38, and I can swing down to 34, but if you're in the States, it's considered, I'm a big girl. And I'm like, are you kidding me? What happens to those girls and women who are way bigger than me? How are they supposed to feel? So all these rules, all these agendas, and all these ways of being controlled, it can be very tough to stand up to that on your own. and say, I am good enough, without having any evidence to really prove that. And that's why, if you coach someone, or when I talk and coach, I would ask the person and say, let's look at the fact that you're not good enough. Have you ever done something in your life that made you feel good, that proved to you that you are a good person? And the person would typically say, yeah, I did that for my uncle, or, okay, great example. Have you done that a lot of times after that, or to other people? When I start asking those kind of questions, very quickly this person can come up with numerous of examples of them doing good things, being a good person. And then you start saying, so is it possible for you to actually do just one thing every day that makes you feel good and makes you feel that you're a good person?
Right.
And that is not a hard thing to do, because it can be something you think. Thinking about somebody else that you really care about, sending them some happy thoughts, sending them love, just blessing them in your mind. That's being a good person for many people. And that makes you feel good. That takes you, 10, 20 seconds? We can all do that every day. Exactly. So it is possible to do one thing every day to prove to yourself that you're a good person. Then you can expand and you can go to another person. You can start smiling to people. You can offer a cup of coffee. You can hold, when people come and they want to park, you deliberately give them the parking slot. If you're in a queue and you see you have a big trolley with food and somebody is behind you with 1 or 2 cucumbers, you tell them, go ahead. This is things we can practice every day. And it's small things. It might feel stupid, but it's so powerful.
It is.
Because it's in our control. And then you can take it to a really, really far level where you start really doing big stuff for people and for friends. But it doesn't matter whether it's big or small. What matters is that you start proving to yourself that the belief you had was wrong. That the real truth is that you are more than good enough. And there's nothing you have to do, there's nothing that is expected of you except what you allow people to expect of you. So that's another thing with relationship is that, the whole saying, you fool me once, shame on you. You fool me twice, shame on me. You fool me 3 times, I'm an idiot. And
I think George W. Bush said it the best.
Absolutely. And there's no doubt that, when people do hurt us, when people do convince us we're not good enough, it's because we're allowing them to. It's not about them. It is about us. And the best thing most people in the world, I think we would benefit from learning more, is to be more responsible and to accept where we are. We're all running this race, this fame game, and this race of look at me, what I got and what I do. And you know what? It can be good because it can be very inspirational, but it becomes a big problem when you don't accept where you are and you actually make yourself bad because you're not where you think you should be. But if you start accepting where you are, accepting who you are, where you want to be, it's going to come way faster, way easier. So that is definitely one of the biggest, I would say also, one of the biggest tasks and clues. So we got to change those beliefs and we got to create these communities where people can feel nurtured and safe and cared for, knowing that wherever they are in life, you are more than okay. And you have more than you think to give. That's the beauty part of it.
And speaking of communities, you said your website is going to be up pretty soon, and I obviously messed it up in the beginning. Can you repeat where they can find it?
Yes, it's called www.powerpeople.us. So that's quite easy, powerpeople.us. And I deliberately chose that name because basically what it's all about is to take the power we have within and utilize it, spread it out with love, with inspiration, contribution, and care. And I think we have so many people that are, that has already walked the path, who can become the mentors for the next generation and the next people.
Right.
And I'm looking forward to meet a lot more mentors for me. I'm looking forward to become a mentor to a lot of people. And basically, it's time to take our powers back. And not that we have to fight anyone, but we just have to be more powerful in terms of giving, in terms of loving, and in terms of accepting. And as I also say on my page, so we can become the powerful beings we always were intended to be.
Absolutely. And I think we're creating a movement, which is, I think it'll really, really grow. So I'm so happy to have connected with you, and very happy to always talk to you. And so we will talk again soon, hopefully.
Of course we will.